I inherited 1,000 acres of my grandfather's Texas ranch and discovered an entire luxury neighborhood using my land like it belonged to them. I was standing beside the old cattle gate when a white BMW X7 slid sideways in the dirt like someone arriving to claim territory. Out stepped Constance Hartwell, president of Cedar Valley Estates HOA attorney, and the kind of woman who treated authority like oxygen. Designer sunglasses hid her eyes while a clipboard rested under her arm like a weapon prepared for paperwork warfare. She shoved violation notices toward my chest as if she were serving a court order instead of standing on private ranch soil. "Tear down this gate immediately," she said, claiming it blocked a private HOA road that supposedly belonged to her community residents. The road she claimed was the same one my grandfather carved through cedar trees. With a borrowed bulldozer in 1962, that road had carried cattle trailers, tractors, and family trucks for 60 years before Cedar Valley Estates even existed. I didn't argue, didn't raise my voice, simply nodded and climbed back into my dusty pickup truck. Because the next morning, a county survey team was arriving to measure exactly where those million-dollar houses were actually built. When they finished marking the lines, Cedar Valley Estates would discover who truly owned the ground beneath their manicured lawns. My name is Clayton Bridwell, 52 years old, semi-retired electrician, and the last man Constance expected to fight back. 8 months earlier, my grandfather passed away and left me 1,000 acres of rolling Texas ranch land. The farmhouse still creaked the same way it did when I visited as a boy chasing chickens through dusty yards. Every morning I brewed coffee while looking across Cedar Hills my family had owned since 1962. My wife Sarah died last winter after a long fight with cancer that drained our savings and left quiet rooms everywhere. She always dreamed of funding scholarships for local kids who couldn't afford trade school or college tuition. The ranch was worth over $2 million, but my income barely covered taxes and basic living expenses. The one treasure on this land was the natural spring feeding Cedar Creek through my grandfather's old well. That well had been pumping pure cold water from underground rock since 1964 without ever running dry. Cedar Valley Estates appeared in 2018, luxury development packed with 200 homes priced near $800,000 each. Their gated streets looked like golf courses compared to my dusty cattle roads and cedar fences. And somehow, their HOA believed my family land existed purely for their convenience. Constance Hartwell drove expensive cars, wore expensive heels, and spoke exclusively in threatening legal language. She treated every conversation like courtroom cross-examination designed to intimidate weaker opponents. According to her, my grandfather's road had magically become a public easement, benefiting the HOA residents. But I remembered my grandfather's habits better than any legal document. He documented everything in a leather notebook that smelled like oil dust and old cedar wood. I kept the same habit and still tapped my pencil 3 times before writing each entry. The day Constance served those violation papers became the first entry in my own investigation. I drove to the county courthouse basement records room, where decades of property documents slept under fluorescent lights. The old records clerk helped me search dusty folders older than most HOA residents. That was when we discovered the first crucial detail buried deep in property archives. My grandfather's deed granted permanent private road and water rights across the entire ranch, but something else appeared in later documents. A temporary 25-year access agreement signed in 1998 when early development began nearby. Temporary meant temporary, and the expiration date had passed 11 months earlier. Cedar Valley Estates had been crossing my land illegally for nearly a year. The records clerk leaned closer and whispered something even more shocking. There was no valid renewed easement filed after the expiration date. Every car driving through that HOA entrance had technically been trespassing on my ranch. I sat in my truck outside the courthouse staring at photocopies like someone holding winning lottery numbers. But the real bombshell came when I searched for the HOA's official easement paperwork. A document existed claiming legal access rights filed in 2017. The signature on that document belonged to my grandfather, except my grandfather died in 2015. Someone had forged a dead man's signature to steal access to our property. The handwriting was sloppy compared to the firm fountain pen script he used his entire life. Medical records showed arthritis had made writing impossible during his final year. That forgery turned a property dispute into felony fraud. My legal aid attorney, Maria Santos, examined the evidence and immediately recognized the seriousness. Document fraud, conspiracy, and illegal easement claims could destroy the HOA's legal position completely. Then Maria uncovered something even worse for Constance. Constance Hartwell had been legal counsel for Pinnacle Development when the forged documents were filed. She personally submitted the fake easement claiming my land belonged to the community. That meant she knew from the beginning their rights were based on lies. Meanwhile, the HOA escalated their harassment, trying to intimidate me into surrendering. Maintenance crews cut sections of my ranch fence, claiming legal authority. My cattle escaped through the gaps and wandered into suburban streets, causing traffic chaos. I documented every inch of damage with cameras and reports filed through the sheriff's office. Deputy Martinez quietly showed me a stack of complaints about Cedar Valley estates bullying other neighbors. Their intimidation strategy had been used repeatedly against people who couldn't afford legal battles. But my investigation uncovered something even more powerful than land rights. The HOA's wells were drawing water from the same underground spring feeding my ranch. Their entire water supply originated beneath my property. Without legal access to that spring, 200 luxury homes would lose their water source. That discovery turned the battlefield completely around. I installed remote-controlled shut-off valves, where their pipes crossed my land. Perfectly legal equipment controlling water infrastructure sitting on my property. Meanwhile, Maria filed a quiet title lawsuit forcing the HOA to prove their claims in court. Local reporter Rebecca Torres began investigating the development company behind the forged documents. Her research uncovered similar fraud cases across multiple counties. Constance panicked and tried bribing a county inspector to file a false contamination report against my well. The inspector recorded the entire conversation and reported the bribery attempt immediately. Federal investigators suddenly became interested in Cedar Valley estates. Everything came together during the HOA's emergency community meeting. Constance stood in front of angry homeowners blaming me for rising water bills and legal expenses. At exactly 7:30 p.m., I shut off the water valves from my phone. Faucets across the entire neighborhood suddenly ran dry. Confused residents realized their luxurious community had no independent water source. I walked to the front and displayed proof of the forged easement documents. Gasps filled the room as residents saw the fake signature beside authentic examples. Federal agents stepped forward while Constance tried to deny everything. Evidence of bribery, document fraud, and conspiracy ended the argument instantly. Constance Hartwell was placed under investigation before the meeting even ended. Within days, she resigned from the HOA presidency in complete disgrace. The community quickly negotiated a legal easement and water agreement respecting my property rights. The settlement paid $75,000 for years of unauthorized land use. Half that money funded the scholarship program my wife Sarah always dreamed about creating. Local trade students now attend school each year through the Sarah Bridwell Memorial Fund. Cedar Valley. Estates installed proper legal signage acknowledging the ranch road as private property. Water from the spring now flows through legally approved agreements protecting both the ranch and the neighborhood. Constance eventually faced federal charges tied to broader development fraud investigations. My grandfather's land remained exactly what he built it to be. A ranch protected by patience, evidence, and the truth buried in courthouse records. And every car driving that road today knows exactly who owns the ground beneath their wheels.